Howdy, fellow vine trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show starts to let you know about a great website called Texas Wine Lover. They can be found at txwinelover.com. And they have a comprehensive website that can become your go-to site for information on Texas wines, winemakers, and the wineries that can be found in this state. They even have a phone app that you can download, and that will help you plan your route to create your own wine trip. So make sure and check them out at txwinelover.com. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow vine tripper. So welcome to episode 28 for Texas Under Vine. Journey with me into the city of San Antonio to a small new urban-style winery called Whisper Path Cellars. This is a small boutique winery that is quietly growing and is getting more and more popular. They've actually had to triple their production this year based on a good harvest and their increasing demand for their tasty wines. It is owned by Jesse Villarreal, who came to the wine industry after a long career as an electrical contractor. So his journey began actually when his brother, who owns Blue Star Brewing Company in San Antonio, gave Jesse a winemaking kit. So as an avid wine enthusiast, Jesse began the journey that would shape his future with that gift. And from there, he began going out to vineyards in the hill country to help with harvests, and he made lasting connections with many of the grape growers in the industry. So after making a lot of wine on his own, at the urging of his family to take his hobby more commercial, he decided to start the venture that would become Whisper Path Cellars in 2017. The name of the winery actually goes back to the name of the street, where Jesse began making wine in his own garage. The current tasting room is a combination of his production facility that actually started as a storage area for equipment from his previous electrical contracting business. They're growing very fast, so they're looking at the possibility of actually building a new, larger facility and tasting room. In the meantime, however, you get to have this really cool tasting experience of sampling his wines at a table right in the midst of the barrels and the production equipment, right where the magic is created. So given their current warehouse-style situation, they do not have any vines or vineyards of their own yet, but they are sourcing quality fruit from the Texas High Plains and are also currently working on some upcoming wines based on fruit from the Texas Hill Country as well. They actually just started official tastings in the winery in April of 2023. So they're really ramping up, and they're already selling out of every wine they produce. The tastings are intimate with the winemaker and are therefore by appointment only. Although they do not have a wine club just yet, Jesse let me know they have one upcoming, and it is currently in the works. So you want to watch out for that to come soon. So I dropped in on their urban tasting room and production facility and had a chance to visit with the proprietor, Jesse, about their history, their wines, and their exciting future growth plans. Let's hear what he had to say. Okay, so I'm here with Jesse Villarreal, one of the proprietor of Whisper Path Cellars. And first, tell me just a little bit about yourself. What got you into the wine industry?
Well, I've been a wine enthusiast for a long, long time. And then about 25 years ago, decided I wanted to try to make some wine. And actually that was initiated by my brother, who's a brewer.
Oh,
He has a brewery here in San Antonio, and Blue Star Brewing Company, wonderful brewer. And somebody had gifted him a wine kit, and he didn't know what to do with it. He asked if I wanted it, so I took it, and I made wine from a wine kit. And though that's not really winemaking, it did trigger something that made me more interested in how this is done, how wine is made. So little by little, I made one wine kit. After that, we ordered some grapes from a winery in California, or a vineyard in California. They shipped them down and froze it in a pail, and started making wine from frozen fruit. That went we did that a couple of times, and then I started introducing myself to grape growers in the Hill Country, and I would drag my kids out to the vineyards in August and September, and we'd harvest about 500 pounds of grapes, and little by little, it just started building on itself. And never really thought we'd have a commercial winery. But in 2017, after doing this for all these years, we had made all this wine, making a lot of wine, and was talked into by my family into maybe doing this commercially. So that's kind of where it got started.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about Whisper Path Cellars. So how did that get started?
Well, that's what started in 2017. We got licensed then. And Whisper Path, the actual name comes, they tell you that you should have a great story, right? With the name of a winery. Not so much. I came up with all these crazy stories, but the truth of the matter is I live on a street called Whisper Path. And we started making our first batch of wine in my garage on Whisper Path Street. So that's where the name comes from.
That's the origin.
That's the
there.
origin.
I got you. Your garage wine.
Right. Now, my daytime job, or the job that I've had since the early 80s, is an electrical contractor. And so this place was actually full of electric supplies. And early on, I would take a corner of the shop, the warehouse, and do my winemaking with it. Well, it just kind of kept getting out of control, and as you can see, all the electric supplies are somewhere else, and now this is all a winery.
So now we got all the barrels lining here with the tasting room table here and everything. All this is your centralized focused area.
Absolutely. And we've outgrown it, or we're outgrowing it. We're in the process of outgrowing it. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be building another facility.
Okay. Well, where do you source your grapes?
Right now, all the wines that we have that we're serving now are from grapes in the Texas High Plains. We are harvesting grapes from the Hill Country, but those are in barrels right now, and we won't be releasing the first one of those until next year. So we're talking about mostly in Terry County. We deal with 3 or 4 grape growers up there that do a great job of growing grapes. Ready Vineyards, Diamante Doble. This year, for the first time, we're going to be working with Oswald, so we're pretty excited about that. He's got a beautiful vineyard up there. In the past, we've worked with Bingham, and there's a vineyard in New Home, which is just south of Lubbock, called Crooked Post Vineyards, and that's where our white grapes come from, and actually our 2020 Tempranillo comes from there as well.
And then do you process, I see a few tanks and things here. Do you process everything here, or where do you process everything?
All of it gets processed here. It gets turned into wine here. With our white wines, what we've started doing is working with a custom crush facility up in the High Plains that will crush, destem, and press our white juice. And at that point, they get it really super cold. They stick it on a truck and they ship it down here. And we'll turn it into wine down here.
Yeah, you don't want it fermenting on the truck on the ride down.
That's the hope, right?
Got you. So what are your favorite wines that you make? What are you most proud of?
People ask me that a lot, and I always kind of think about it and say, that's like asking me which child I like the most. It's a difficult question, because my philosophy is I make wines that I enjoy. That sounds kind of selfish, but I feel it works for us. But if I had to pick a couple of them, I would say on the white grapes, Viognier. I've made a Viognier since day one every year, and I just love the crispness and the flavors and the fruitiness of a Viognier, especially on a hot day. Tempranillo is another one of my favorites. It's a grape that's doing fantastic in Texas, and we're real proud of our Tempranillo.
Well, what about from a customer's perspective? What are the ones that they just rave about that's hard to kind of keep in stock that they just really come to get?
Well, we've been very fortunate in that we basically sell out of everything. So, of course, we're a very, very small winery. We're a boutique winery, and so we're not making huge amounts of wine. But we've been fortunate to where all the wines we're making are very good, and people have enjoyed them. So we always sell out of all of them. I would say Viognier is a favorite. Is one probably we sell the most of. And on the red wine side, it could be the Tempranillo or the Montepulciano. Tempranillo is one we've done since day one as well, and it's always been a favorite. But Montepulciano is really catching on, and people are really gravitating toward that.
And I know you're kind of in a small space. You're building and growing, and soon you'll outgrow this spot here. But because you're in a small space, do you do any kinds of, like, besides tastings, any kind of events or things like that with people?
Well, in April, we just started for the first time offering tastings here in the winery. And we have to do it by appointment only because we just don't have the space to bring in, or, if a bus showed up with a bunch of people looking for a wine tasting, we couldn't even think about handling that. But so we asked people to go to our website, and you can book an appointment. Typically we try to do it on Thursdays, Fridays, or Saturdays, and we have time slots throughout those 3 days. And so far, so good. People that have come in and really enjoy it. I mean, they want to see the nuts and bolts of how the wine is made and where it's made, and they like to hear the story from the winemaker.
I think it's kind of a special treat to feel like you're doing a tasting right in the middle of the facility, the barrels all around, the winemaker right there. It feels very personal and very focused.
And that's the goal. That's the aim at this point. We had a couple of tastings earlier this week that turned out great. They loved it and promised they'll be back. So we'll see what happens.
Well, tell me about tastings for a second. If someone decided, they made an appointment, decided to come in to do a tasting, what is that going to look like for them? What types of wines are they going to get, and what are the fees and things like that?
Okay. So we have two options. One is a 5 wine tasting, and they can choose from any of the 5 wines, any of the 6 wines that we have. They can choose any of those 5. And so we'll go from the lightest to the heaviest. That tasting runs $18 right now. And we also offer the same tasting with a small bite food pairing. So for $25, you could have the wine tasting with a small bite food pairing with it.
So you can kind of see the samples of the ways the food interacts with each particular wine.
Yeah.
Because it does make a huge difference sometimes for wines.
It does.
Okay. And then, we talked about reservations. We want to make sure reservations, you talked about your operating hours are good there. Family friendly. What if somebody wants to make a reservation, but they've got a couple of kids that they need to bring with them? Is that okay? Is it allowed?
It is allowed. We don't really have a policy on that. We're kind of small. We haven't had that situation come up yet. But if it did, I mean, I've got 12 grandkids, so I love kids, and the only issue that I would be concerned about would be we are in the winery, so there is equipment here that as long as the kids are around their parents, we shouldn't have any problem with that.
What about fur babies? So someone wants to bring their dogs or things like that with them.
Well, that may be more of an issue. We just don't have any facilities to handle dogs.
So it's not necessarily that you don't allow them. It's just that it was not really practical.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. What about, so you talked about the food options and the pairings and all that, but if somebody wanted to bring their own food, whatever, so maybe they brought a kid, they want to bring some food with them, or is that allowed? Is that okay?
It would be. The tastings typically that we do last an hour to an hour and a half, because we take each wine, we walk them through how this wine was developed, where it came from. We actually show it on the map where the grapes come from. Most of them are single varietal, but some are blends. So we talk all about that. We give a real education on the wines that we make. So if they want to stay and have a drink with some of the food they bring, that's quite fine. That's fine.
And I know you mentioned tour bus pulling up or whatever, but do you have any kind of maximum group sizes? So what's kind of the largest group to do a tasting?
At this point, we're talking maybe about 8 people.
Okay.
We try to limit it to 8 people. If someone did contact us and say, well, we've got a group of 12, we've got a group of 16, depending on the time of year, at this time of year, it's tough because we are processing our grapes. If we have a larger group, we could possibly accommodate them, but it would have to be on we'll have to work that out.
They definitely need to contact you first.
Certainly.
And try to make arrangements to figure out how to handle all
Certainly.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great. So what are I don't know, you're new, so you're just kind of getting a feel for things to some degree, but what do you feel like are your busy or slow seasons? What's the best time to come visit?
Well, you're right. We are new, so we haven't gone through very many seasons. If I can just go by some of the places that carry our wines, some of the tasting rooms that carry our wines, their biggest season seems to be in the October, right around October, early fall to late fall, and then same thing in the spring, probably early spring to late spring before it gets too hot.
Yeah. Do you have a wine club for people to join?
We don't yet, but
Okay.
this time next month we hope to have it launched.
Yeah.
Pathfinders Wine Club should be available starting in about 30 days.
Do you know the details on that yet?
I don't know. I don't have them
Still
in front of
working
me.
it?
Yeah, we're still working on the details.
worries. No worries. I wasn't sure if you had all those details or anything yet. And so again, as a young winery, you may not be doing this yet, but is there a way, do you do any kind of like distribution, or can people buy your wines on your website or anything? In other words, is there a way for people to taste your wines if they can't come to this physical location?
We do supply wines to a few different tasting rooms, mostly in the Hill Country, a couple of places here in town, and there's also a few restaurants that carry our wine as well. In Fredericksburg, there's Vintner's Hideaway. We also handle or sell through Los Olivos. They're in Wimberley and Buda. Esperanza Winery in Blanco also carries our wine. So a few tasting rooms around the Hill Country and a few restaurants as well.
Can they buy online?
And they can buy online. Absolutely.
Okay.
All our wines
Perfect.
are available online.
So you're new, you're getting started with everything. What are your plans for growth? What are your plans for future growth? What do you see in your mind for Whisper Path?
Okay, so we started in 2017 with the idea we're gonna start extremely small and slowly grow. I guess the driving force with that is I didn't want to go into debt. I didn't want to build a winery on debt. So you have to grow at a modest rate. We have been able to accomplish that. The last couple of years, we were somewhat stifled by the volume, by the grapes. It was a tough year in the vineyards. Actually, the last 3 years have been somewhat difficult. And so production-wise, we weren't able to increase at the rate we were hoping to. So this year, we've decided we're making a big jump. So the number of grapes that we're contracted for is 3 times what we've ever contracted for before. And so we're looking, that's going to be a catalyst for the future growth. So we'll, typically our reds will age 2 years, our whites 1 year or 9 months to a year. And so in 9 months from now, we should be increasing the amount of grapes or the amount of wine we have available. So the plan is to get to a level of about 25 to 3,500 cases a year. And I think we're on our way.
Nice. And then you plan to expand tasting room. What does that look like?
Right.
Your thoughts?
So
just thoughts in your mind. I know this is just plans.
Well, we've been looking. We have property in the Bulverde area, and the plan is to build a winery there. It would have a tasting room as well. So that's been in the works for a couple of years, and hopefully this year will be the year we pull the trigger on it.
Nice. I've heard that this year is what it's looking like is a good harvest right
Very
now
good harvest
for Texas grapes. So.
Yeah, it's really the best one we've seen in the past 3 years, and that kind of is the catalyst for purchasing the amount of grapes that we're buying this year, and will trigger the growth going forward.
Excellent. Okay, so what, in your opinion, would you say sets Whisper Path Cellars apart from other wineries that people could go visit, where they would say, a listener might be listening to this and think, I really want to go check that place out because...
Well, there's a lot of great wineries in Texas. The quality of wine that Texas wineries are producing has improved immensely in the past 15 years. What sets us apart, I think, is the quality of our wine. As I mentioned before, we sell out of everything we make, and a lot of that has to do with the quality of it. I can't tell you the amount of times people come in here and they go through our full lineup and they scratch their head saying, "I don't know which one to buy because I loved every one of them." Now, that's not bragging. I think that has to do with the grape growers. They're producing fantastic grapes, and fortunately, we know what to do with the grapes when we get them. As far as what sets us apart, I don't know how many wineries you could actually go to that you could sit across the table from the winemaker, and he can tell you how each one of those wines was made, can tell you where they came from, and tell you the passion that we put into our wine. San Antonio, as big a city as we are, there's a lot of people that don't know that there's any wine in this city that's produced. You mentioned Rerooted downtown. They do a great job of selling Texas wines, but I don't know if there's another winery that actually produces wine in a facility in San Antonio, and I think that's another reason why we might be set apart. As big a metropolitan area as we have, to only have one winery in here that actually produces wine. So they'll see the whole operation. They see the tanks, the barrels, the equipment that we use, and that may set us apart.
So Jesse said it perfectly. If you're in the big city of San Antonio or one of its suburbs, you don't even have to take a long road trip to the country to taste amazing quality Texas wines right there in the heart of the city. So Whisper Path Cellars may be small right now, but they're growing by leaps and bounds, and the quality of their wine speaks to that growth. As he said, they have currently tripled their contracts on fruit. And I don't know about you, but I'm really anxious to see what Whisper Path Cellars can actually do with that hill country fruit that they're bringing in. And as their production increases, their slow growth plan also will lead them to hopefully in building a new tasting room in Valverde as well, as he mentioned. Now, I know you're anxious to get out and try these fantastic wines in their intimate setting with Jesse. However, make sure you check out their website before you go. It's www.whisperpathcellars.com. You're going to find all the info on their story, their wine selections, and you can even make reservations on their website to go visit and actually taste their great wines. Now, don't forget when you go see them, make sure you tell them you heard about them on this podcast, Texas Under Vine. Now, remember that awesome Tempranillo that Jesse talked about? I can vouch that it is every bit as good as advertised. So that's what I brought home as my library bottle for this episode. And sitting in the winery with the grapes actually fermenting all around me, I wanted to jump up and actually help Jesse with the winemaking process. But alas, the whisper of other wine locations down the path has caught my ear, and I must venture on to bring you more fun destinations. As I get ready to hit the trail, however, I'd like to propose the opportunity for you, the listener, to partner with me in this venture. It takes a little bit of money to actually produce and host this show. In addition to all of my travel expenses, as a teacher, all of these costs are paid for out of my own pocket and supplemented by my awesome patrons of this show. So I wanted to get out there and travel the state and see even more destinations. And you can actually help me do that. If you're enjoying the show and benefiting from the episodes, would you consider joining my Patreon community? For just a few dollars a month, you'll get access to even more content on Patreon, and you'll be helping me cover the cost to bring even more great locations to you as the podcast grows. If you're interested, just go to my website. It's texasundervine.com. Click the Become a Patron link at the top. And much love and thanks to those who continue to support the show on a regular basis. You help the show in more ways than even you can know. Well, my time is up. So don't forget, subscribe to the podcast and follow my socials to be notified anytime a new episode is posted. Until then, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. we strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at TexasUnderVine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly. Don't forget to also check out the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app. If you want to plan a trip to the wine destination I talked about in this episode, the site for Texas Wine Lover and their phone app that you can download will really help you organize a trip so you can go see them. You can check out all of the goodness that I got to experience while I was there. But as you're planning your trip, while you're on their website or their app, you can also find out things like accommodations, restaurants, and even some fun events and things that are going on at the wineries, and maybe even find one that you want to experience as part of your wine trip that you never even expected. So check them out. Again, it's txwinelover.com.